Today we're going to talk about some practical skills that you need as a freelance musician. Hey, thanks for pressing play on this video. Look at that. I got a special guest. This is Aaron Washington, also known as the Black Trumpeter. Aaron, welcome to the channel.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so please share some tips with us about some functional skills that we need as musicians.
The first thing I want to talk about is you have to know how to transpose. So if you play trumpet, B-flat instruments, tenor, saxophone, so on and so forth, right? So you not only have to learn how to transpose by ear, but by sight. So if you have a C part, you have to learn how to navigate that so you'll be able to play the right notes, because C and B-flat or C and F instruments aren't the same. So that's the first skill.
And how can somebody practice transposing?
Oh, real simple. When I started practicing transposition, just take something like a simple melody. I know for trumpet players, we have not the Getchell book. We have the Getchell book. It's a very simple beginning method, and that's what I used. I used a simple band method to help me transpose to different keys. So, for instance, what I did was I took the music that was already there, and in my mind, I said, this music is in C. This is a C part. So what I'm going to do as a trumpet player, I'm going to think about the notes up a whole step, right? Because with B-flat trumpets, B-flat instruments, we have to think a major second above that. So I practice that every day just to get my, my quickness. Yeah. Because when you get to a job, they might not hand you a B-flat trumpet part.
That happens all the time. Concert pitch. And it's not a big deal if you practice it. So make sure you spend some time transposing your music. He talked about the Getchell book. And it's a real good idea, I think, just to pick any random piece of music. Pick 2, 3, or 4 measures. Doesn't have to be a lot. And just take everything up a step.
True.
Yeah, as trumpet players, typically we only have to go up one step for the most part.
Right.
On occasion, there's some wild transposition.
Definitely, like if
minor third,
minor third, up, down,
sixth. Yeah,
man. Especially for singers, like there might be a song that a singer is not comfortable, like their range might not fit that particular key of the tune. So you have to know your transpositions. Like if there's music, you have to kind of know your music theory a little bit. So you have to know your major scale harmony, like the scale degrees 1 through 8. Okay, if I'm playing the 4, what is the 4 in F major? What's the 4 in B flat major? So you're able to very quickly get to those notes without having to think about it too much.
So what are some other practical skills that we need to work as a musician?
As a musician, we have to be very versatile. So you not only have to be able to read music really well, but you also have to be able to improvise. So improvisation, I noticed that, especially with wedding gigs, there's certain times where they expect you to, or they point you out, like take a solo.
It's your turn.
It's your turn. So yeah. I've been in those situations, and you might not know the key. You might not know even the song. So you have to practice improvisation and not be too shy about it. So that's my tip for that.
And I want to interrupt a little bit, talking about not knowing the harmony. There are specific progressions that are common. So if you learn the jazz language, 3-6-2-5-1, for example, is a common jazz harmonic pattern. Or often a lot of times the bridge will go to the 4 chord. Now that's not the only place it goes, but that's common. And so if you tune your ear to these common progressions in real time, you won't be as thrown off. If you know what key you're in, and then you hear that the bridge goes to the 4 chord, you'll be pretty good for the most part.
So that ties back into the earlier tip about knowing basic music theory.
That's
basic major scale harmony, basic minor scale harmony. Yeah. So thank you for that. That's a good piggyback. Oh, and also on top of that, that goes along with improvisation is playing by ear. playing by ear is something that you just have to be able to do, because there are going to be those instances where maybe the tenor sax player that's the lead horn player, like he's leading the group.
That's good.
He may have a lick that he might want to play for this particular groove or whatever. So you have to be able to play what he's playing and do it really fast, because those moments come up really quickly.
They come and go. Yeah.
They come and go. So I know that because, I play in a church, and most times we don't have charts for the horns. And so or the song changes last minute, the day of, and we don't have music for that.
Right.
So we come up with our own horn parts on the spot, in performance. So having a good ear is very important.
That's good.
So along with ears, you have to have your eyes. So you have to be able to read. Sight reading is a must. There'll be plenty of gigs where you're a sub, and so there's no rehearsal. And this is the pros.
Yeah.
There will be no rehearsal, or very, very little. Maybe they'll go over the music for like 30 seconds, or maybe 30 minutes. Excuse me, for 30 minutes. And they only go over
if you're lucky,
right?
Yeah.
So if they go over the roadmap,
yeah.
Like we're gonna go here, we're gonna take the coda, but it's not, you're not really playing through the music. So being able to sight read really well is a must. That's probably the most important skill I think that you need to have, is so not only be able to transpose, play by ear, but you have to be able to sight read really well on the gig.
How can someone get better at sight reading, or what are some tips that you can give us to become better sight readers?
One tip that I have is just read every day. Read something new every single day. And what I do is, you can take a etude. Take a etude book, and every day you read a different line. It could be a few measures. You read that line at tempo, and you record yourself and see how you did. Were you able to at least get the rhythms? Sometimes that's probably the most important part, is getting at least the rhythms. Pitches are, for me, I think it's maybe secondary, but at least if you have the rhythms, you're in time. You're able to, you're not sticking out as much.
I want to interrupt, if I may, and remind you that to practice sight reading, you have to be reading something new. That's why it's sight reading.
Definitely.
So if you mess up these 4 measures randomly that you choose, it's expected, especially at the beginning. But what you cannot do is go back and practice it, because that is no longer sight reading. It's called practice.
Right.
So if you want to continue to practice sight reading, choose something fresh to look at that you haven't seen before.
Definitely.
Yeah. I had to catch myself and my students from practicing sight reading many times in the past. And I want to give another tip. Can I share a tip for sight reading? The STARS method is something I personally learned in high school. Have you heard of the STARS method before?
No,
so it's basically like an order of how you read your music when you're looking at something for the first time. So it's the first S in STARS, it's an acronym, stands for sharps and flats, which is really essentially the key signature. And then T stands for time. What time signature are you in? And of course, you want to scan the music, like overall, look at everything, because the key can change and the time signature can also change. Third is the A, check for those accidentals. That's important because your fingerings, your accidentals will influence your fingerings, right?
Sure.
And then R is for rhythm, specifically what you might consider a difficult rhythm, not just a measure full of quarter notes. And I always like to identify something that might be considered difficult, even if it's not. Say, okay, in this piece, measure 37 is probably the most challenging rhythmically. And then spend 5 seconds to figure that out and count it through. And then R for the roadmap, repeat signs, first, second endings, things like that, codas. Does this piece have that? And then finally, the last S, I forgot what that stands for. Those are the main things. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, but I didn't even think of that, because those are things that I look for.
Yeah.
But to put it in an acronym like that, that just codifies everything. It just makes it.
It kind of makes sure that you don't forget anything.
Right, you
important.
don't forget anything. So that's great. I'm glad you shared that acronym with me.
Have you ever got called for a job and maybe you have to learn a whole lot of music, like maybe 12 songs or more, and you felt like, I don't have enough time to learn all this music? Like, what has that happened? And if so, what do you do in that time?
What I do to, whenever I don't have enough time to really learn the music, like I would write it out, because most times I've encountered gigs where they don't have the horn parts. Like we might be playing Earth, Wind and Fire or Stevie Wonder or James Brown, and all that music is on there. So I have to write out those charts for myself. Or maybe it might be an instance where I have to write out music for the entire horn section. And that's my job. So if that's a skill that you need to be able to do, you need to be able to transcribe music and chart it out for yourself so you have it, so you'll be able to read it, maybe sight read it on a gig if you don't have time to practice it, and or hand it out to the other guys so you can have a great performance.
You'll be on the same page.
Be on the same page.
Yeah,
definitely.
articulations and things like that.
Yes.
So you're talking about a skill where you have to write music. What program do you use? Are you using software? You writing it out by hand, old school? How are you doing it?
Well, now I'm a lot more efficient with music notation software. So I use Sibelius. I took a class in college on how to use Sibelius. And at first, it's a little intimidating, but once you get to know how you work with it, it's very easy, very fast, and they're not paying me to say this, but I like it because it's very easy to create professional looking charts.
Yes, it is.
Very easy, like one click of a button, and it looks good. You can put some text to it. So to answer your question, I use Sibelius. Because it's just easier for me to do that.
Yeah, I also use Sibelius.
Nice.
Yeah, I second that. Yeah, and it's just because I learned it first, and it's really easy to stick to what you know instead of learning something totally new. Before I let you go, would you like to leave any more functional tips for us that we can use out on the scene?
Oh, definitely. I'm gonna say this for trumpet players, as far as your skills go. Being able to be anything, be able to play everything. So being versatile is a very good skill. So be able to play lead.
Yes.
Being able to improvise. Being able to be a section player. Know how to follow. If you're any other instrument, say if you're woodwinds, being able to play flute, clarinet, all those things, because you may be the go-to person for that gig. You have to play those sounds. Usually in a wedding band or in a horn band like a R&B band, there's only one trumpet. So usually that one trumpet is playing lead. So get your lead chops up as much as possible, and also improvise if there's more than one trumpet. Especially if it's like a jazz gig or a R&B or funk gig. So I'm gonna have to say, be versatile. Be able to play anything. That's a very good skill to have.
Yeah, that's a very good tip. Thank you, Aaron, so much, man. I'm glad to have you in the channel. Where can everybody find you on YouTube or anywhere else online?
You can find me at the Black Trumpeter here on YouTube, and you can also find me on Instagram at black_trumpeter at Instagram. I'm also on Facebook. We'll have a website, awashingtonsound.com. And that's how you can get in touch with me.
That's all for today. Thanks for pressing play, and we'll see you in the next video. God bless you.
All right, so for...
Hold on, this is my channel. No, this is great. I can put this all in. Are we in focus?